Hey, what's up, Liron here. Today we're going to explore a painting process and show you how to simplify the details one way that I like to do it. This video, by the way, is sponsored by my own book, How to Sketch, on Amazon. Link in the description box below, more on that later on. But first off, drawing. So I'm going to go really wacky and fast and kind of rough drawing here. I don't necessarily want to put too much information because for me personally, I enjoy building things up with the paint. And I recently have found that sometimes if I can get away with it, I'm going to put less pencil lines and have more freedom in my painting. That's me. Everyone's going to be a little different. But what you see me do is just putting in the main blocks. That's going to be the main rooftop that is coming towards us and receding into the distance. All of these bridges, I do want to kind of get a general idea of where they are. So I'm putting in the river or this is Florence, by the way, beautiful photo. I took this one cropped extremely horizontally, which I really, really like. And that bridge, that main bridge that has a bunch of stores in it. I remember there was some couple of jewelry stores, stuff like that. So now it's time to paint. Now, the way I'm going to approach the first wash is almost placing in an underpainting like you sometimes would see. I'm not going to do this really a la prima. I'm just starting in with a basic wash sky. I am going to put a smudge of phthalo blue into it because I like, once you tilt the paper, it moves down. It looks really, really cool. You can also spray on it to help it move down a bit, which is, I sometimes enjoy doing, or bring back some water like I'm doing here. This is freedom, right? You can do it however you want. This is how I chose to do it. There are millions of ways. None of them are right or wrong. It's very dependent on the moment and what you're trying to achieve. But I'm going to extend this. I'm going to snooze the alarm clock. I'm going to extend this all the way down across the bridge and over the bridge too. Now, I don't mind just bringing in green over the bridge. That is perfectly fine. It's still going to look really, really good once I cover it up with another layer. But what I'm thinking of right now is what's a good basis color to help me later build upon when I add the shadows. And the water is clearly, it goes from a blue to a green. You can very clearly see the transition there where it reflects more of the sky. It's blue, and then the more you see the actual water, they look a little more green and more, I would say, unclean, but I love that color, so I like that. Now for the buildings, you'll notice it's a muted brownish purplish color, so I'm just placing that over it. Now I am letting it touch the sky wash and kind of blend. That is okay, because this is still going to be a very loose underpainting. Once again, I don't always paint like this, but sometimes when I feel like just going for it and being really fast with the first wash that kind of gets things out of the way, I'll do it. Sometimes I'll just get started from here and start putting in the nuances, but not this time. Now, the buildings on the right, very beautiful. This is actually a picture I took from a museum. I don't remember which one. I think it was like a major one, but I forgot which one it was. So some of the buildings are more yellow, some are more white. The roofs have that same kind of purpley orange color to them, brown mostly. All of the colors are more neutral than you think. But the idea here is to get a first wash out of the way so we can focus a lot of our attention on the details in the next wash. And you're going to see exactly how I simplify in this example and how with very few details you can create a lovely impression that there's a lot over there. A lot is going on, and you can imply a lot by just very basic touches. But we're not doing any of that now. Now we're simplifying it almost like you would wash it out, look at it from afar, and the only thing that will be left is this very watery layer of paint, if that makes sense, that can tell almost the full story. Now, before we move on to the next wash, I do want to mention this video is sponsored by my How to Sketch book. Check it out, link in the description box below. If you want to get started with sketching in 2024, and especially if you are into watercolor, but you want to be able to sketch something out real quick that you can paint based upon, be sure to check that out. I know it's a pain point for a lot of people, and for those who are looking for a more intuitive approach, less about really understanding volumes and how to structure things three-dimensionally, which is another fun thing and very useful as well, but you don't have to always rely on that. If you're looking for that intuitive approach, be sure to give it a look. I think you're going to really like it, and it's going to help you build that basis for your paintings. And it was kind of an accident, actually, but it's really made for painters in a way, because I've always, I guess, looked at things in a bit more of a painterly way, and with a simplified eye. So I think you'll find it useful. Link in the description box below. Thank you so much for supporting my work. Let's continue with the next wash. So I'm going to begin adding the actual details. Now, how do I do this? So I'm observing, right? I'm looking at it. What I see is where it's very far away, it's pretty gray. You see a bit of foliage, but it doesn't look really like a bright green, but rather a very gray wash of trees that then leads us onto the city. I am starting with a very wet wash. The reason for that is I want to keep it light and I want to give myself time to edit it out. My goal is to finish the painting in this wash, and this is a rather fast process. This entire video is going to be around, 16 minutes, 17 minutes long. So I'm finishing it in this wash. So I'm putting in that line for the horizon with the mountains. It's pretty light. Now I'm going to soften some edges because I want this line to really recede to the background. And if you look at the photo, you will see that kind of a thing. Now, this is enough to establish a backdrop for the city. And you'll be surprised at how beautiful it looks and how much it reads well against the buildings. Now, we're not going to let anything dry. We don't really have to because all the details in the background are vague anyway. So I'm just going to go with it. Now, if you really look at the buildings, what you'll notice, it's just a brown, red, orange kind of variation, very neutral as well. The only thing that is really more bright and vibrant is the rooftops, and that's what we're going to leave from the previous wash. So what you see me do here is putting a bunch of random shapes in. This is a skill in and of itself, if I'm being honest with you. Putting those random shapes in. There is no analysis behind them. There is no thought, oh, this is the shape of this rooftop, this is the shape of that rooftop. I don't often enjoy doing it very calculated. I enjoy being able to wing it, but it still is based on what I'm seeing. So sometimes the details themselves don't even make sense. They aren't as accurate, but it's the confidence with which they were put that makes them look good, regardless of the fact that they don't look anything like the thing that is there. And it's not because confidence will lead always to that, and you should be confident to get it to look like that. Not at all. You shouldn't do any of that, and you may end up finding that a different process works better for you. It's just that for me, I find that when I'm doing these things confidently, it's a byproduct of already being very in tune with the process, which leads to a better result. But what you see here is very loose, right? And I'm putting in the tree line in the back. I'm letting it all mix together. Now, why does it still make sense? Why does it still look good? The very simple explanation is that I've trained my eye to notice the overall pattern, and then I also have the experience and the confidence, if you will, not because you should be confident, but just based on my past experience to put the details in like that. And that's why it all connects really nicely. And if you believe it, everyone who looks at the painting will believe it if you've done a decent enough job, right? It's not always, it's not 100%. It's nothing that should be done actively. I'm just explaining to you this is the byproduct of being really in touch with the process, actually looking at what you paint and actually being there. Instead of being in some kind of an imaginary place in your mind with a predetermined idea of what you're gonna get and being very rigid and trying to force that specific result. Now I'm starting to put the bridges. Farthest one is relatively light, and as it gets closer, they start to be a little more of that same brown neutral color. The farther ones are more towards the neutral gray, I would say, not even blue. It's more of a gray transition into a brown, and that's what makes the gray look very cool. That relations, temperatures, values, it's all relations. You can, of course, match the color closely, you can match the value closely, but at the end of the day, in the context of your painting, it's all going to work in relations to one another. Now I'm adding this very thin shadow under two of the bridges. The further one, it's not necessary, it's too far away, but I am seeing these little strips of darker water there. Now onto the bridge that is closest to us, and that's, oh, I'm going to put some foliage before that. There's a bit of red, green on the bank. So a good trick to do this wet in wet is use a relatively opaque yellow. My lemon yellow here is quite opaque, and it looks really good. It looks just like that green you see there. Now I'm putting one brush mark for the top roof of the bridge, and I'm going to mix a bit of a warm kind of yellowy color for all of the things underneath it. And that is, I would say, the main construction of the bridge, because I'm looking at the rooftop and the wall, right? But once you're in there, and assuming you used wet enough paint to give you some time, and I'm working fast here. You see this entire process is fast, and trust me, it's gonna connect. At some point, you will look at it and you will see it. The water will feel like they have substance to them. They'll feel like they're actually under the bridge. You'll see things connect slowly as this process progresses. I am putting that dark shadow under the rooftop. It's all symbols, right? It's all symbolism. If I squint my eyes, what is left there? What is the essence of the thing I'm looking at? What is the most simplified version of it that tells the entire story? I'm not doing this consciously. I'm not thinking these thoughts. These are observations that I can tack onto it retrospectively. Okay, there is no really any line of thought. It's just seeing, painting, seeing, painting, seeing, painting. The process is very automated, and I don't know if you've had this experience. You may be able to relate. By the way, this is one of the coolest parts where I'll start adding this beautiful bluish shadow underneath the bridge and all of this wet and wet darkness. I don't know if you can relate. If you've ever done a few paintings in succession where you kind of messed up all of them and you didn't like any of them, sometimes there's this switch in my mind that happens. This thing clicks, and I just want to do a looser one, and I just end up going for it, and it works out because I did not think about anything. It usually happens when you try to be accurate and you keep messing up, and you're so sick of doing it, and you're so tired of it, you just say screw it all, and you just go for it, and that's the thing that somehow leads you to just getting it exactly like you wanted to get it. That's exactly what happened for this process. I've done a few very tight paintings, kind of wasn't happy with the result, or they weren't even tight, they just didn't go my way, and then bam, this one process clicks, and it's just because of that. It's the zero thought. Even if you're inexperienced, I'm going to add a bit of cobalt to that shadow underneath to make it a little bluer. Even if you're not experienced, if you don't have a lot of experience, this will still work. There's a lot of power in the intuition after you've gained a very basic understanding of the medium. If you can mix a dark value, mix a light value. Just in isolation, if you can do that on a separate piece of paper, you can do these things in a painting. The main thing that obstructs you from being able to do that is everything that runs through your mind. At the end of the day, if you look at my paper right now, it's a mess, right? If you look at the actual small details, nothing really is that close, and nothing, and I'm going to put this very thin reflection. You can see a bit of it there, a reflection and highlight. Nothing is really accurate, so to speak. The impression is still there. That's the magic of Impressionism, and at some point you're going to look at it, it's going to connect. Especially, I think, once I darken the lower section of the river, you're going to see it happen in front of your eyes. I just went for it. I don't have enough words to explain to you how much I just went for it. And there is something to that obliviousness where it leads to a lot of magic. The accuracy almost can come later, but usually it comes at the expense of actually seeing the impression you're seeing and seeing the thing the way it looks. That's the thing. It usually comes at the expense of that, and that's where a lot of people just end up encountering a lot of problems, let's say. So now I'm establishing some of these shadows down, and there's a lot of people there, a lot of foot traffic that I absolutely love this kind of a view, and I'll probably develop it into a way more detailed and larger painting. I love this very thin establishing of a shadow there. Even though the two sides of the rooftop are very close in value, there is a mild difference, and I'm trying to convey that. Same for all of these, very sharp shadows that are close to us. Again, it's all symbolizing it. If you look at my paper, it's not as horizontal as the original one. I changed a lot of things to make it fit in a different sort of composition, right? So that's from the start. So you can really tack onto any different composition a scene and it will work as long as you're actually looking at it. You're actually seeing it. You're there when you're painting it. And I know all of this is very vague in some ways, but also if you've had that happen to you once, I don't want you to believe me. I want you to find it in your own experience. If it ever happened to you that things just connected, you just placed it. I've had this beautiful comment a couple of days ago. I saw it that someone mentioned how that's now they understand why their colors are often messed up when they just try to mix the right thing, but when they just place the color as it is, things work. It's almost like sometimes a sketch looks better than a finished drawing. A very rough sketch looks better before you ink it even. The reason for that is that sketch has the freshness that is later lost. Now, there are ways to preserve this freshness for sketches and for watercolor, and it's exactly what you're seeing here. There's a lot of power in putting it out there, making the statement, and it will work. Now I'm putting in the water really up close. This is a yellow, lemon yellow, a bit of cobalt. Look at how it anchors the ground, so to speak. I call the water the ground here. It's gonna just make it look more tangible, more physical. You're going to see it happen. It's a wonderful effect, and I'm going to add a bit of it behind that. Now, if you take a break from this video, go make yourself a cup of coffee, come back, you will see it for sure. If you take a few steps away from the screen, you'll see it for sure. Things are really connecting here. Now, I'm going to go wild here. I'm not going to put a lot of details. To me, again, I managed to, and I felt just like doing one very smooth, loose, just painting that's very rough. I'm not going to put a lot of details here. I'm going to get away with, as few details as I can, because that's the mood I'm in. I'm not always in that mood. But when that mood comes, I allow it to take me wherever it wants to take me. I don't resist it, because resistance is futile. It really is. Now, look at how I'm placing in a few highlights there after I signed it. I love this bit. Look at how it makes the base of the bridge make more sense. I'm going to put it also, and the reflection, I'm going to put it also on the bridges that are farther from us. It's just a nice little touch, as well as these small rooftops on the stores and whatnot. It's just a nice small touch that I feel like works really well. Now again, if you compare it to the reference photo, is it an identical copy? No, it's not. It's a version of it in the way or through my eyes at the moment, hitting the mic, at the moment of painting, right? And if I'm going to do another one, it's going to look different. If I'm going to do another one, it'll be a different version of my vision. That's how these things work. But the thing is, if you're resisting your vision, if you're trying to force a certain result, what will end up happening, it's not a mistake. It's not wrong to do. You'll just suffer for it and you won't get the result you want. So the question is, do you want to maintain that sense of control to ensure that you get the result you want, even though often it won't lead to it, right? If you're able to see it for what it is, you will be able to paint things beautifully. It'll make a lot of sense. And yep, those are my 2 cents for this one. I hope you enjoyed this. This is one way that I simplify a scene. It's not necessarily about the how-tos exactly. It's more about the overall thing, finding your vision, allowing it to come to you instead of chasing something very vague in your mind that isn't necessarily there even, But in any case, yeah, thank you so much. A reminder, check out the How to Sketchbook. If you want to be able to sketch just like I've shown you in this demo, very quickly, very confidently, get that very intuitively as well, the main shapes, what's necessary there. How to Sketch is perfect. You can get a physical book and then you own a physical book, which is really, really fun. I am going to publish soon another book, the 100 Cars book, so just kind of a cool thing. Maybe you'll get to see my work on Amazon. Check it out. I will put a link in the description box below. I do want to thank everyone who supports me over on Patreon. You allow me to make tons of free content for everyone, and it's just a result of a lot of people wanting to support my work, and I really, really, really appreciate it. With that said, I will see you in the next video. Until next time, take care.